All right, thank you.
They believe in. But even now, you look at what happened yesterday after the assassination. What happened? Oil prices went up. It's good for the fossil fuels industry. It was good for the oil companies. It's incredible.
No blood for oil.
And as someone's saying, it's good for the defense contractors. But when we're talking about fossil fuels, and we're talking about the military, and talking about the oil companies, and talking about who benefits from these wars and from these threats of wars, I think it's important to talk about the other massive crisis that we're facing right now, which is the climate crisis, which is an extraordinary, existential, absolute, defined threat that, without question, is going to steal and destroy our children's futures, any hope of our children's futures, if we do not act to stop it. And I'm very honored and we're very excited that we have with us now, today, Jane Fonda, who has tirelessly and courageously stood for justice, for peace, and has, for the last months, been in Washington, D.C., week after week, organizing thousands of people to come to Washington, D.C. and in Washington, D.C. to stand up, to demand a Green New Deal, to demand an end to fossil fuels extraction. Under her organizing and brilliant leadership, there are hundreds of people who have taken acts of conscience, who have risked arrest and acted in civil disobedience because they know that the threat is real and that it's incumbent upon the people to act. So I'm very, very pleased and thrilled to introduce Jane Fonda.
I wanted to be here because I wanted to express to everybody that the climate movement and the peace movement must be one movement. The younger people here should know that all of the wars that have been fought since you've been born have been fought over oil. The bombing happening in New York and here at the Pentagon and elsewhere on 9/11 was about oil. Because for decades, U.S. troops were stationed in the Middle East to guard oil, and troops were stationed on sacred sites, sites that are sacred, holy to the people of that region. Did we not know that? Did we once again not learn the lessons of Vietnam? Not bother to understand the people that we were shaming and insulting? Not to mention killing. And the environments there that we are destroying, and the children that are dying of toxins because of the gassing. And all of the things that the U.S. has been doing there.
No blood for oil.
So please understand, the Pentagon is the biggest institutional user of fossil fuel in the world.
Biggest polluters.
That we can't anymore lose lives and kill people and ruin environments because of oil and fossil fuels. Brian said that the war in Iraq was started by Bush. No, it was started by Cheney.
Absolutely.
Halliburton.
The CIA.
It's always been about oil. Oil is killing people in the Middle East. The wars around oil are killing them, and oil is killing us here, killing our climate, causing fires in Australia. We have to stop it.
Yes.
This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Let's wrest our government out of the stranglehold of the fossil fuel industry and take back our democracy. Thank you.
No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. Hey, Trump, what do you say? How many kids did you kill today? Hey, Trump, what do you say? How many kids did you kill today? Hey, Trump, what do you say?
How many kids did you kill today?
I said, hey, Trump, what do you say?
How many kids did you kill today?
Hey, Trump, what do you say?
How many kids did you kill today?
I said, hey, Trump, what do you say?
How many kids did you kill today?
All right. Once again, of course, we are here standing against this criminal assault on Iraq, on Iran, on the Middle East, this campaign of never-ending war being perpetrated by the United States, being perpetrated by the major powers of the world across the Middle East and certainly across the globe. And right about now, I'm going to bring up a seasoned peace activist, someone who was on the front lines during the effort. Some of you may remember not long ago when we were protecting the Venezuelan embassy, when this government was trying to support a coup in the country of Venezuela that ultimately failed. And so right now, I am going to bring up Kevin Zeese from Popular Resistance. Please welcome him as he comes.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for being out here. Thanks to those who supported us as we face federal charges for protecting the Venezuelan embassy. We really appreciate our trial be coming up in February. We have a number of embassy protectors here today. And so thank you all for being part of that effort. It was a group effort. It was a collective. I want to thank Jane Fonda for uniting the peace movement with the climate movement. Uniting these movements will create transformational change. Transformational change. This is the decade that we will face up to climate, that we will face up to the Pentagon. We will put in place a peace economy based on clean, renewable, and sustainable energy. That is the future we are developing. The reckless attack, the reckless assassination by Donald Trump against the commander of the Iranian forces is living in the past. That is a war for oil. We don't need any wars for oil. That era is over. In fact, the era of the United States causing chaos in the Middle East needs to end. Not only do we want to stop the war with Iran, we want the United States out of the Middle East. Since 2003, since the United States attacked and occupied Iraq, since then the U.S. has destroyed Libya. Obama started the war in Syria, still going on. We have caused chaos throughout that region. Yemen is being slaughtered by the United States and Saudi Arabia. And what we're seeing now, we're starting to come into focus on a reality. We are in a global world war right now. The Middle East is the battleground for that war. But that battleground will shift and expand. We see already the escalation between the U.S. and North Korea. We see this last week in Venezuela, Brazil tried to attack Venezuela from the south. There were supposed to be simultaneous attacks from Colombia and from the Pacific, at the 3 attacks at the same time. Only one occurred, and that was stopped by the Venezuelan government. So global war is with us. We already see Russia involved in the Middle East. We saw last week China and Russia join with Iran to show the United States that there's unity against U.S. imperialism. We see the United States reaching out to Saudi Arabia and Israel to expand this regional war that's escalating out of control. This already is a world war. We just haven't faced it. And during this world war, we see incredible weapons races between the U.S. and Russia and China and other nations. The nuclear weapons race started under Obama with $1 trillion 10-year plan to improve and expand our nuclear capacity, is continuing expanding under Donald Trump. The nuclear weapons race. And now we see a space weapons race developing. That weapons race will make all the previous weapons contractors wealthier. And the weapons race will be larger than we have ever seen in history when the outer space becomes the new battleground. Right. So what we are here now in the beginning of 2020 is a critical year. It's a critical year for us to show both parties that militarism and war are no longer supported by the people of the United States. When Elizabeth Warren starts her comment on the illegal assassination with saying what a bad guy he was and he should have died, that's unacceptable. Only Bernie Sanders said the right thing. Bernie Sanders said the Iraq war was a mistake, and he said that the assassination was a mistake, and escalation is a mistake. That's exactly right. Donald Trump ran on a campaign claiming the wars in the Middle East were a mistake, we're wasting trillions of dollars, and here he is escalating those wars.
War criminal.
We need to make it clear to those who supported Donald Trump that he was a con man. They lied to them. We know Hillary was a warmonger. We know that. But Donald Trump pretended to be opposed to Middle East wars, and here he is, violating international law and escalating those wars. So it's time for us in 2020 to build a peace movement that cannot be ignored. You here today are on the cutting edge of that new movement. This movement's going to expand this year to tens of thousands, to hundreds of thousands. This is just the beginning. Today, more than 80 cities in 38 states are holding protests to say no to the war in Iraq, to say U.S. out of the Middle East. We are going to accomplish these objectives. We're going to create a new world. The peace economy is our future. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Up next to speak, we are going to have Hadra from Students Against Imperialism at George Washington University. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out here. My name is Hadra. I'm with the George Washington University Students Against Imperialism. We are an anti-war, anti-militarization, anti-occupation, anti-apartheid group on campus, standing up against, students standing up against war, endless occupation, endless domination that the United States has been inflicting upon the global South for centuries. And right now, plain as day, the mask is off. The mask is off on U.S. imperialism.
That's right.
The media, CNN, New York Times, MSNBC, they are parroting their Pentagon and State Department lies. They want us to believe that it's imperative for us to go to war, that poor Iranians, poor Iraqis are our enemies, that we have to be there, we have to bomb them. Am I missing something? How does war bring peace? You know, Democrats and Republicans alike just passed a $738 billion defense budget. We can clearly tell $738 billion in the hands of big CEOs at Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing is money out of the pockets, out of the food, out of the mouths of Americans, of poor working Americans. And on climate change, on the note of climate change, we're in a current climate catastrophe. Australia is currently burning. Indonesia is underwater right now. And this war for oil, this onslaught, never ends. Bodies will pile. The earth will be destroyed further and further while the rich get richer. And we're here to say no. You know, the U.S., the imperialists on both sides, the media, the corporate media, fed us the lie that we had to go into Iraq. If you look at Iraq now, with the use of depleted uranium, you have generations, you have babies being born with mutations. You have increased cancer rates. This is war and violence that continues for generations. And we're here today. I wanna thank all you for being here today, the young people, the older people, everyone. Because in this new decade, in 2020, we're standing up against war. We're standing up against occupation. We're standing up against apartheid. We're standing up against U.S. imperialism. We are building an anti-war movement. And we're not gonna let this happen anymore. No more business as usual. We're standing up. We're not feeding the lies they serve to us in shiny new directions on both sides. We're standing up. And so I'm just gonna keep the intensity going. Let's go in with a chant. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor.
Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor.
Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. Stop the sanctions, end the war. No more violence on the poor. All right, we want to thank Hadra from Students Against Imperialism. And I think that just really shows how dynamic this anti-war movement is. We've got students, we've got young people. You've got to have that youthful vitality. Keep things moving. But how y'all feeling? Y'all all right? Y'all ready to do a little more chanting? Trump says more war
give a warm hand for Paul Dunphy of Friends of the Congo. I think we've lost Paul, but right. Well then let's.
Paul Humphreys, come back to the stage. Sisters and brothers, we're here at the White House, but we wanted to get your opinion. This is a poll. This is an act of democracy. How many people here think that we should march a few blocks to Donald Trump's International Hotel and make sure that he and all the guests understand that if they're going to take the country to war, which means that thousands of people minimally will die, that this is going to be no business as usual, because you cannot have business as usual when the government that speaks in our name, says it speaks for the American people, is committing crimes against humanity, is violating international law, and violating the UN Charter. Now, we have quite a bit of media here today, and we hope the media actually hears the message. Yes, sir. We think there are perhaps two Americas. One America that's in the boardrooms of all the defense contractors in Arlington, Virginia, and in Alexandria, and on Wall Street. They look at war as something good for their bottom line. But you know what? It's not their children who go and fight. It's not their children who go and die. It's not their children who are asked to kill people they don't know. Those are the children of average American people, and we speak here today for that other America. So we're going to go to the Trump International Hotel, and we're going to make it sound, make it clear, no business as usual when they're playing with fire and taking the country to another war. So let's just have a quick show of hands. How many of you are willing to march to the Trump International Hotel and let him and the fat cats and the war makers know no business as usual? Should we do that? Yeah! All right, we're going to have a few more chants. We're going to line up, and then we're going to march over to the Trump Hotel. It's a couple blocks. We've done it before. We're going to do it again. Let's listen again to Sean and Leo.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna bring up our friend Paul Pumphrey from Friends of the Congo, because we know that what the U.S. is doing in the Middle East is not just doing in the Middle East, it's doing it in the Congo, doing it on the continent of Africa, and to make those connections. Paul Pumphrey from Friends of the Congo. Please welcome him as he comes.
The U.S. government has carried out a war against the people of the Congo for one simple reason. They want the minerals that are in the ground, which is roughly about $24 trillion worth of minerals. About 85% of the people here who have a cell phone have minerals coming out of the Congo. And the way they're going about doing it is they are supplying weapons and training and logistical help to the neighboring countries of Uganda and Rwanda, who cross the border and attack innocent villages who happen to be living on top of those minerals, because the mining companies know they can't mine the minerals if people are living on top of them. The result of that is from 1996 to 2006, the United Nations estimate that 6 million people were killed in the Congo, the eastern part of the Congo alone. And over half of them, 3 million of them, were children below the age of 5. At the same time, the second largest rainforest in the world is in the Congo. And they have been burning those fires to get the trees out of the way, to get access to those minerals. And again, we have the United States turning, in its media, turning a blind eye to the burning of the forests in the Congo. while now it's creating a great deal of floods inside of the Congo because the Congolese River is now going over its banks and affecting people's farms, as well as drowning livestock. So the United States is carrying out an imperial war against people of color in particular. They're doing it in Iraq. They're doing it in Afghanistan. And they're doing it in Africa. Many people have heard about African Command, where the United States decides to expand its military influence on the continent of Africa. It was started by George Bush. But George Bush was only able to get 3 military bases put on the continent of Africa. So the corporations funded and backed Obama. And during his 8 years, on an average, he put 10 military bases per year in Africa. People were surprised when they heard about the 4 soldiers being killed in Niger. But the fact is, we got secret bases all over the continent of Africa because the continent of Africa has oil and it has minerals. And U.S. corporations and U.S. banks want access to that. And you can control the government if you got a gun sitting in their face. So, again, we say no more wars. We say that the only way forward in this election year is for everyone to insist that their political candidate commits to cutting the military budget by 50%, no less than 50%. That creates the money necessary for the health care that some of the candidates are talking about. That allows for the money. That allows for us to have affordable housing. That allows for the money for us to have our students to go to school without being in debt for the rest of their lives. So again, we say no war. We say peace is the only way forward. Thank you.
Next up to speak, we have Layla Zand, a member of Code Pink and an Iranian American.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I'm in no means I'm a supporter of the Iranian government for what they do inside Iran. And as a nonviolence activist, I don't want to cry for a general, for an army general, but I have to confess I have done it since the moment I've heard that. Because he is very popular. I believe he is not only a name, but rather he's an identity of an Iranian. He's the one who helped to destroy ISIS behind the doors of Iran. And he destroyed ISIS all over the Middle East. He's the one who interestingly has enemies, from ISIS to Jabhat al-Nusra to American new liberalists who want to have the hegemony of the region, Israelis and Saudis. And that means, I think, he has done something good, that he has majority of these differences as his enemy. I cried a lot because he was, and he is, like the symbol of the peace in the country, inside the country, and he helped many people. We still stand for peace and diplomacy. And the moment this guy came to the office, he destroyed that path with coming out of the deal, Iran deal, the nuclear deal, and he has continued that to this moment. We still stand for peace and diplomacy, and hopefully it will have a result. No more war, no more death for the region and for all of us. We have been destroyed here in our home, and there in other people's home. We destroyed them. We destroyed their lives. And I do not understand what was the reason for this latest action. I really cannot get it. What did bring, what kind of good that brought to us, for us and the Middle East? Thank you, and please continue this.
Thank you so much, Layla. Next up to speak, we have Hassan El-Tayyab from the Friends Committee on National Legislation.
Hey, everybody. This is really great to see so many people out here that want to reject a war of choice with Iran, and that know that diplomacy is really the only way we have to go forward with this situation. I am really just disheartened by what the Trump administration has done and set us on a path for war, destruction, and more chaos. I want to tell you a little bit about why I do this stuff. My family's from Jordan, and I grew up, and people used to say all sort of disparaging things about my nationality, and it had me feeling pretty low. And then that was before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, and it got even worse. And then we saw the Iraq War, and I just couldn't understand why America hated Arabs and Muslims so much. Then I went to the Middle East, and I got to meet my family for the first time. And they were incredible. I mean, my parents split up. It's a little bit too much information, but I grew up here, and I didn't really have any connection with that side of my family. When I went to Jordan, I met some of the most amazing people I've ever met, and my heart breaks to know that the war in Syria has caused their life, so much misery. The war in Iraq has caused so much misery. What's going on with Israel-Palestine and all the Palestinian refugees is causing so much misery. And at the heart of all this is U.S. imperialism. It's the United States wanting to assert global hegemony. And this is not a zero-sum game. Our decision to kill this Iranian general, Soleimani, basically shows that the people running this country are a bunch of imperial chauvinists who don't have any regard for human life, and we need to stop them. Now, I have a little message of hope. This year, for the first time, well, actually last year, we were able to get Congress to work in a bipartisan way to try to shut down the war in Yemen, and they passed a War Powers Resolution. Republicans and Democrats, we can come together on this issue of ending endless war, and that's what 2020 has to be all about. We need to go to town halls. We need to make sure our legislators hear from us, that they reassert their Article 1, Section 8 war authority. None of this BS of the president gets to go to war whenever he or she wants. No. Congress gets to decide, and our job as a peace movement is to make sure our legislators stand up for peace. And I just am so happy to be in this fight with you all. Thank you all.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do? When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do? When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do? When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
The Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
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 Then what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
All right, make some noise. We're getting ready to move here in just a second. But before we go, I want to make sure we hear a statement from our friends from Pan-African Community Action, a local group here in D.C. that does great work. And PACA, Pan-African Community Action, a member organization of the Black Alliance for Peace. So I want you to help me welcome Rebecca Bonhomme from Pan-African Community Action. Please welcome her as she comes.
Thank you, thank you. How's everyone doing today? All right, so I'm going to read this statement. I hope you don't mind if I have my friend here with me. All right. Black Alliance for Peace declares, if you believe in peace, commit to defeating the warmongers. No war on Iran! Turn imperialist wars into wars against imperialism. The Black Alliance for Peace, BAP, is clear. We will not fight for the rich. We understand our objective interests as an oppressed people and will not be moved by appeals to national chauvinism meant to galvanize the poor and working class to support wars of choice initiated by the white supremacist colonial capitalist oligarchy. Yes. BAP opposes war with Iran and is supporting the national mobilizations this weekend demanding no war in Iran and the withdrawal of all U.S. troops from Iraq. But BAP also calls on all progressive forces to join us to fight the domestic military surge, to oppose the training of U.S. police forces by the Israeli state, to struggle to shut down AFRICOM, to demand the closing of over 800 U.S. bases worldwide, to advocate against the normalization of nuclear war, and to expose the collaboration of self-defined progressive and radical forces with the U.S. war state. All right, bear with me. They cannot have us. We will struggle against them for ourselves and for humanity. Dr. King warned about the spiritual death of the U.S. with its addiction to war and militarism. Its materialism and extreme social alienation, but he was wrong. He was wrong. The spiritual death of what became the United States occurred in 1619 when the settlers imported the first Africans and decided to expand beyond the coast of the country by force, resulting in monstrosity called the United States today. We who believe in freedom, in possibilities of real democracy, of people-centered human rights, of peace and livable planet, cannot wait. We must understand that our aspirations must be translated into concrete struggle. We must be clear. We cannot win without a sharp understanding of the forces of oppression that must be defeated. For BAP, it's obvious when we look in the mirror while driving as black that the enemy is not the Iraqis, Russians, Syrians, or Venezuelans. U.S. out of Iraq and Afghanistan. Oppose Trump domestic surge targeting black people. Stop the Department of Defense 1033 program that militarizes police forces. Shut down AFRICOM and all U.S. and NATO bases. Cut obscene military budget by 50% or 100%. Who's ready to walk to the Trump Hotel? All right, let's go.
We have two more speakers, actually. They're going to speak together. They're great independent journalists. It's my pleasure to introduce... Oh, sorry. Not in sync. Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone.
Good to be back. And props to my man with the sign, Occupy My Ass, not Iran. Award for most original sign. Every time I come up here, after some regime change plot, I feel like, I'm doing a George Carlin impersonation. Because the people behind us are so stupid and crazy, it's hard to know what to say. Yesterday, and I'm not even Lee Camp, so I'm not good at doing George Carlin, okay? By the way, it's nice to see so many people here. Usually it's just like everyone who came to my birthday party or whatever. So this is nice. This is good. This is encouraging. You know what I'm saying? This is an actual resistance that's starting to build after a few years. Okay? Yesterday, the State Department had a stupid and crazy briefing, and they were asked to provide evidence that Qasem Soleimani was going to commit an act of war and carry out attacks. And the response from used car salesman Robert Palladino, aka State Department spokesman, was, "Jesus, do we have to explain this to you people?" That was his response. There is no evidence that is being provided at all to explain, to justify this attack. But let me explain to you why Qasem Soleimani was killed. It's very simple. Because he rolled back the Salafi jihadi forces that the U.S., the CIA had been backing in Syria to destabilize another independent sovereign country, and he helped prevent, by organizing the popular mobilization units, Hashd al-Shabi, he helped prevent Iraq from becoming a U.S. client state. It is that simple, and the assassination of Qasem Soleimani is revenge for his success in rolling back the most vicious imperial plot that we've seen in recent years, which sought to have black flags, the black flags of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the organization responsible for the 9/11 attacks, flying over Middle Eastern cities. Qasem Soleimani is being mourned in Iran for that reason. And this country is now in danger again because of the insanity of people who have actually emboldened the authors of the 9/11 attacks. That's what's going on here. And we need to make that clear to everyone because the evidence isn't being provided by mainstream media. And there hasn't been a resistance for years because of the congressional Democrats. What have they been doing? Where have they been? They've been seeking to impeach Donald Trump for not being warlike enough on Russia and for not sending offensive military weapons to a Ukrainian military that is incorporated in its National Guard, the Azov Battalion, a neo-Nazi battalion. Why should we be complaining that they're not getting weapons? What they should have been doing is resisting a $735 million NDAA and not stripping out a resolution that would have stopped this goddamn war in Iran in the first place. So it's up to us to be in front of their offices. It's up to us to be informing our fellow citizens about the lies we're being told. It's up to us to be in the face of a bought-out, sold-out corporate media. It's up to us to be the real resistance. The resistance hasn't been out here at all. They've been pushing for more war, not less. And we have to make one thing clear, that if war comes on Iran, it will be for the same reason that this government has been threatening war on Venezuela, on North Korea, on Syria, and why they've just done regime change in Bolivia, because these countries refuse to be absorbed into the empire. We need to stand in support of independent states and international law and support their right to be sovereign. I want to introduce you real quick before we march. My special colleague at the Gray Zone, Anya Parampil, has been doing a lot of work on sanctions, particularly against Venezuela. We have to understand that sanctions are an act of war. The war on Iran began when we began sanctioning them.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Code Pink. Thank you, Answer Coalition, for putting this together, and thank you to all of you here for turning out. I have not been to Iran, covered the situation on the ground there, but I can tell you that I was in Syria last year. And the first time that I ever drove into Damascus and was struck by the massive Syrian flag, actual Syrian flag, still waving over the city, I was emotional because I thought that if it had been up to the people in this building behind us and the other people in this city, that flag would have been replaced with a black flag of the Islamic State, ISIS, in the Islamic State, Syria and Iraq. And I can tell you, everyone that I met in Syria is eternally grateful for the sacrifice made by their own people and the Iraqi people who fought alongside them in ridding the Islamic State, and that included Major General Qasem Soleimani and the Al-Quds forces. I was just speaking with an Iranian academic in Tehran. I did a video interview with him, and I asked him, why was Major General Soleimani seen as such a hero across the region, not only in Iran, and not even only in Iraq and Syria, but in Lebanon, in Yemen? He told me, this was the exact word he used, because he was seen as an anti-imperialist fighter. He was leading the resistance axis to the evil our government and our military and our empire have brought on the region. And so we also have to keep in mind that the war on Iran did not begin with the U.S.'s assassination of Major General Soleimani. It began decades ago when the U.S. overthrew their first democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. It continued when the United States backed Iran's foe in the brutal Iran-Iraq war, Saddam Hussein, which the U.S. later betrayed and destroyed his country as well. And it continued when President Bush declared Iran to be the axis of evil. That was a wish list for regime change. And it has in the most savage way continued in the form of unilateral coercive measures, economic sanctions, what Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif describes as economic terrorism, which the United States is waging against the Iranian people every moment, every day. Even when a bomb does not drop, people are dying because of this financial war. Yeah. And Iran is not the only victim of this silent war. It is not only Syria, Iraq, the people of the region. It is not only Korea, Vietnam, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, all of the people, Zimbabwe, who are forced to live under U.S. financial terrorism. It is also the people in this country. It is the people in Baltimore. It is the people in D.C. who don't have homes, who don't have education, because our empire sacrifices the public at home in order to sustain its brutal military abroad. And we have to build the connections between what's happening there and what's happening here. And we can't only be out here when there is a strike and the feeling that all-out war could unleash at any moment, because we are waging a war against not only the people of Iran, against so many sovereign and independent people of the world. And it is my mission to help bring that to an end. And are all of you with me? That's what I thought. That's why we're going to march to Trump Tower right now.
All right, how y'all feeling? You know, real quick before we move, I just want to reiterate again how important it is to have so many people from so many different movements and so many different organizations represented here today. And even if you're not with the group, how important it is for you to be here as well. We got the Answer Coalition, we got Code Pink, we got the Black Alliance for Peace. The Movement for Black Lives is out here. We got Black Lives Matter DC, we got Black Youth Project 100, Stop Police Terror Project DC is out here, Popular Resistance, Friends of the Congo. It's so important that we have this unity, because even though we may be fighting these oppressive institutions from different angles, we are yet fighting the same system that produced this suffering, that produced this destruction, and that are produced what the U.S. doing in the Middle East right now. And so, I don't know about all of y'all, but I didn't have all the standing still I can take. So if y'all ready to move, we are going to gather on the sidewalk. You can see the big yellow and white banners over to the right, and we're going to start our march. And as we move in that direction, we're going to say no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
We were late.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice. No peace. Say what? Let the police go out there. Fuck the police. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. Let the U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice.
Come faster now.
It's you. You control the flow. You slow your walk.
Yeah, we'll slow it.
Slow your walk. Slow your walk. You control the flow.
Come over here.
No, you go on now. You go to the middle.
No justice, no peace.
peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. What democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. No more. We say 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 no more. La matanza en general.
We say no more.
say no more.
Trump says more war.
We 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 say no more.
He says get back. We say
Fight back.
He says get back. We say
Fight back.
He says get back. We say
Fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
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 Get back.
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 Fight back.
He says more war.
We say no more.
He says more war.
We say no more.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
Trump says more war.
We say no more.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
Trump says get back.
We say fight back.
Trump says get back.
We say fight back.
He says get back.
We say fight back.
Get back.
Fight back.
Get back.
Fight back.
Get back.
Fight back.
Get back.
Fight back.
He says get back.
We say 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 fight back.
Get back.
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 Fight back.
Justice. U.S. out of the
Middle East.
no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice.
No peace.
Hey,
U.S. out of the Middle East.
no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle
Let me hear you, no justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
No peace. U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice.
No peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East.
No justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When the Middle
East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do? East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
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 I said, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the Middle East is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
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 I said, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
All right, make some noise, make some noise. How y'all feel? Y'all feeling all right? Y'all not tired, are you? Well, that's good. Shame, 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 That's right. We are out here today to name and shame the perpetrators of this escalation in the Middle East, in Iraq, and Iran on behalf of Donald Trump, the Trump administration, and the U.S. government. I tell you what, I like this energy. Y'all was warm before, but I think you're hot now. That's right. Well, we're going to keep the fire going this afternoon. We say bombing of Iraq happens by the hour. What do we do? Fight the power. Bombing of Iraq happens by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq getting bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
What do we do? Fight the power. What do we do?
Fight the power.
What do we do?
Fight the power.
What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
Iraq gets bombed by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
The Pentagon kills by the hour. What do we do?
Fight the power.
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 Let me hear you say, hands off Iran. Hands off Iran. Hands off Iran. What?
Hands off Iran.
Say it.
Hands off Iran.
Say it.
Hands off Iran.
Louder.
Hands off Iran.
A little louder.
Hands off Iran.
Yeah.
Hands off Iran.
Say it.
Hands off Iran.
Say it.
Hands off Iran.
They can hear you.
Hands off Iran.
They can hear you. off the ride, hands 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 off the ride. All right, make some noise, make some noise. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up, won't take it no more. Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up,
Can't take it no more.
got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor.
Fired up. Can't take it no more.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
Got money for war, but can't feed the poor.
We're fired up. Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it no more.
We're fired up.
Can't take it
Let me hear you say no more sanctions. No more sanctions. No more sanctions. What?
No more sanctions.
Right.
No more sanctions.
Say it.
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 No more sanctions.
Louder.
No more
A
sanctions.
little louder.
No more sanctions. No more sanctions. No more sanctions.
Say it.
No more sanctions. 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 No more
Sanctions. No more sanctions. No more sanctions. All right. We're keeping the fire burning this evening in this demonstration against war, against occupation, against criminal sanctions and imperialism. And we're going to hear a few quick words from Brian Becker, National Director of the Answer Coalition. Please give him a hand. Friends, we called these demonstrations 3 days ago, and today we're happy to say that there are protests today, right now, as we're marching in 82 cities and towns throughout the United States. That's only a beginning, though, because what Trump did by assassinating the most popular political and military leader in Iran, added third-party airport at Baghdad Airport. What Trump and the generals did basically said to the Pentagon, I said to Iran, guess what? We're the boss. We're the boss of Iraq. We're the boss of Iran. We can kill you whenever we want to kill you. We don't give a damn about international law. We don't give a damn about the UN Charter. We're the 700-pound gorilla. We're going to sit wherever the hell we want to sit, and you're going to kneel. You're going to kneel. And guess what? There are 80 million Iraqi people who are proud people, who will never kneel, who will never bow before Donald Trump. And when they say that this is an act of war and they will avenge the death of their political and military leaders, we must take that seriously. The war against Iran will not be like the war against Iraq, which was a much smaller country. And it won't be like the war against Libya. Libya was 5 million people. Libya and Iraq have been destroyed, but they were relatively small compared to Iran. Iran has not only 80 million people, it has an advanced military, and even the people who criticize the Iranian government, they are uniting right now against Donald Trump and the war crimes of the Pentagon and these war makers. So the stakes are very high. The stakes are very high. If there's another war, a real war, then the selective service will come back for sure. American young people will be drafted. You will not have a choice. Your choice will be, as it was for my generation, 5 years at Leavenworth Prison or to go in the U.S. Army. That's what it really means. In Vietnam, 2 million Vietnamese died and 58,000 Americans died, and the Vietnamese still won the war because it's their country. The American soldiers wanted to go home, but the Vietnamese were home. It's their country. The American soldiers don't want to be in Iraq or Iran. They want to go home. But the Iraqis are home, and the Iranians are home. This kind of imperial arrogance by this imperial gangster, Donald Trump, is something that will take the country, the region, the world to the brink of disaster and over the disaster. This is serious business. What we are proposing to all of you, because we know now that Iran will in fact be compelled to retaliate. And then Trump will say, we have to hit back. And then the Iranians will hit back. That's how wars start. That we have to build the kind of massive movement in the United States at the grassroots level, like happened in Vietnam, so that we can stop the war makers from carrying out these crimes in our name. We have to do that. Can we do it? It's up to us. It's up to us. It's up to each and every one of us. You can join an organization. You should join an organization. I'm in the Answer Coalition, U.S. Labor Against the War, Code Pink, Popular Resistance, Veterans for Peace. If you don't want to join those groups, start your own group. But you have to be organized. You have to fight. We have to mobilize. And we have to let our fellow workers and our fellow students and our family members know exactly how serious this is. This is not a game. This is not fun. This is serious business. And Trump is so thoughtless and reckless. But there's another part of the problem. The Democratic Party in Congress has done nothing, really. They've done nothing. The U.S. Constitution says only the U.S. Congress can declare war. Trump doesn't even consult with them when he declares war. And are they out here? Where are the Congress people? Why are they not here? If they said, if the people in Congress said, hey, all the people in the United States come to Washington by the millions, you know, millions of people would come. But why don't the Democrats do it? They don't do it because they're addicted. They're addicted to the same military contractors, the Wall Street banks, the Pentagon. They're the same. They're the same. They're arguing with Trump around the edges. Last week or 2 weeks ago, they passed the National Defense Authorization Act, $378 billion. That was the Democrats. They gave the Pentagon more money than Trump asked for, and more money than the Pentagon asked for. But then the Democrats said, but in return, we got paid parental leave for federal workers, which means that when World War III starts, those workers can be home with the kids, I guess, and getting paid. We have to say to the Democrats and the Republicans, we're not going to stand up. We're not going to stand for it. We're going to stand up. We're going to stand up, and we're going to fight back. They say more war. We say no war. They say more war. We say no war. They say get back. We say fight back. We're going to build this movement. Are we going to do it? Yeah. Yes, we are. All right. Thank you, Brian. That's right. We know that organization is the sharpest weapon that we have. And that's why we're out here to say, Trump says more war, we say no more. 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 I love it. Make some noise. I tell you what, I ain't much of a singer, but the harmony of the organized people sounds so lovely now, don't it? Well, right about this time, I want to bring up another longtime peace activist, another embassy protector, Margaret Flowers from Popular Resistance. Please welcome Dr. Margaret Flowers.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. So I need your help with something. Earlier last year in February and March, we traveled with a group of people to Iran on a peace delegation, and we met with many Iranian people, and we've continued to stay in touch with them since then regularly. And right now, they're telling us that they are very scared about what's going on. And so what I'd like to do is quickly do a video message from all of you, all of us, to all of them. And so I thought maybe we could do it in a mic check way. Do y'all know what a mic check is? All right, so I'm going to get my camera going here. All right, mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Dear people of Iran. Dear people of Iran. We have a message for you. We have a message for you. We say no war. We say no war. We will fight to stop war. We will fight to stop war. We say U.S. out of the Middle East. We say U.S. out of the Middle East. And stop the sanctions now. And stop the sanctions now. We love attempt to hand over the U.S. Embassy to coup leaders after a failed coup. That was a new level of recklessness. This is another higher level of recklessness, assassinating an Iranian leader in the sovereign country of Iraq. We have to recognize that this machine is off tracks and it will not stop until we stop it. So thank you for being out today. Let's keep fighting. Let's win.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. That's right. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice. No justice. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. No justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East. If we're ready to get U.S. imperialism out of the Middle East and out off of the world stage, maybe you give a round of applause right now. Big hand. No more sanctions, no more war, no more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war.
No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions.
No more war.
No more violence on the poor.
No more sanctions, no more war.
No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war.
No more sanctions on the poor.
No more sanctions, no more war. No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war. No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war. No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war. No more violence on the poor. No more sanctions, no more war. No more
Silent surprise.
Because Trump has sent troops over there. We have more in common with the troops who are over there. We have more in common with the people of Iran who are being, slaughtered, who are being manipulated, who are being, crushed under U.S. imperialism, under U.S. sanctions. We have more in common with the people of the countries around the world, with humanity of people of countries around the world than of the owners of the Trump Hotel. And of the people in Congress. We have more in common with people here than people in Congress. The people in Congress don't represent us. We know that because they go into Congress and they vote for billions and billions of dollars in spending. Billions of dollars in spending. And who are they spending that money on? They're giving that money to the defense contractors. They're not giving that money to us, and it's our money. We are the workers. We are the ones who go into jobs every day. We produce the money. We produce the things that keep everything moving. And what's important today is that we are all in the streets. We can see, look around you. There are hundreds of people around you. We are the ones who will take back the power. We have to. We are the ones with the power. There's more of us. We are the ones with the power. We are the ones who will continue to come into the street. Who will continue to say no to war. We will continue to say we have basic human rights. We just need a roof over our head. We all need it. We all need food on our table. We all need a job. These are basic things that we need. And we don't have that right now because the elites, the U.S. government is spending billions of dollars to kill other people abroad. But what we all need on this world is those basic human rights. And that is why we are here today. We are fighting with our brothers and sisters in Iran. We're fighting with our brothers and sisters in Iraq. Join me, join the Party for Socialism and Liberation, pslweb.org, to learn more, to stand up, to fight back. Thank you so much for being here.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. My friends, this has been a very successful action. We had a wonderful time. It was our pleasure and privilege to help organize this demonstration today. And we want you to know that this is not the end. This is not the end. This is not the end. So in the coming days, the coalition that helped put all of this together will be announcing future actions, future work, and future ways for you all to get involved. So be sure to check out the websites of the Answer Coalition, Code Pink, and Popular Resistance, and we'll have more information in the coming days. I hope to see each and every last one of you as we continue. Y'all gonna stay out here with us? Well, I, for one, look forward to continue to struggling with you on this issue. So on behalf of the Answer Coalition, thank you so much for coming again, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back.
Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Afghanistan, don't come back.
Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back.
Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back. Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back. Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back. Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back. Out of Syria, out of Iraq, out of Iran, and don't come back. Yeah.
If you can bring your signs up, we're going to be announcing in the next day or two the next actions. If you want to keep your sign and you're going to do something with it, cool. Otherwise, we're going to stack them up here.
Microphone checked.
So as Sean said, go to the websites of the different coalition partners. In the next 24 to 48 hours, there will be an announcement of the next national day, or it could be a global day of action. We're talking to people in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa, and in Asia. So
So we expect in the next weeks we will have another and even larger international day of mass protests saying no new Middle East war. So as you're leaving, and be sure to tell your friends about this and check out the website. If you're leaving and you want to keep one of the signs because you're going to spread the word with it, do that. But if you're not, we're going to keep some of the signs so that when we come together in the next days and weeks, we'll have some of this already prepared. If you're not going to keep your sign, just bring it up here to the front. We'll stack it, and then we'll be able to take it with us. Again, go to the different coalition websites, Answer Coalition, Code Pink, Popular Resistance, Veterans for Peace, Black Alliance for Peace. There's quite a number of groups that have come together. As a matter of fact, it's a truly impressive coalition. And we are meeting shortly after this demonstration. Again, there are 82 cities and towns that are doing this right now as we're doing it in Washington. This coalition will announce other actions in the coming days and weeks. So thank you very much again for joining us.
Bring your signs up if you want. Unless you want to keep the signs, bring them up. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
Good job, man. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're done, right? Yes.
I can take them. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Signs, any signs? I'll take your sign.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
No problem.
Here you go. You can take this one.
Thanks. Hey, what's up, Saints? All right, man. Good to see you, man. All right. Yeah.
We have all the speakers.
All right, man.
Are we missing one?
All right. See you next time.
In charge of speaker security. Are you sure? Otherwise, it's my fault. You're not sure?
Jordan, you all did a very good job today.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. The other one's broke, so this is the
Okay.
Yeah, looks so
Great job, brother.
So,
Good job.
all over the street. But we're going to be having fun. I love that you all came. Everyone had different bands.
Yeah. Let's go. We got it, Tim!
Let's go! Let's go to Congress!
Misha.
Yeah. We go to Congress?
Ain't no power like the power of the people, and the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, and the power of the people don't stop. Hey, what?
I'll help you. We're gonna go.
You want to go somewhere?
Let's go! It's okay, we're moving.
Where's Congress?
Let's go to Congress!
Let's go!
This woman is trying to bring the
No justice! No peace! U.S. out of the Middle East!
No justice, no peace! U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace! U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace! U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace! I'm going, I'm just looking around. No justice, no peace! U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace! Could you push for a second?
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
I'll follow back as well.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no
Justice, no peace! U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace!
U.S. out of the Congress!
justice.
That'd be a pretty boring LARP, though. That's just like a suit with a nice hat.
Hey, look,
No justice.
keep drinking, okay?
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
Follow us in your gyrocopter.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
Can I get a shorter quick?
Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace. U.S. out of the Middle East, no justice.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tomorrow that you weren't allowed to come and speak right here where all those other people were before.
They just close it up right now?
Citizens just like you and I were here and joined their capital, and Congress closed this down and made them leave and made you leave as if you were threats to democracy. No. These guys are just doing their job. No. They're just doing their job. You make sure Monday you contact your congressperson and say, that is ridiculous. You're tired of marching. All you want to do was come to your legislature, and they made your common citizens leave. They work for us. These poor tourists had to leave, and they wouldn't let you come just for a picture on the steps of the Capitol. Just make sure you contact your congressman Monday. You bet. But it's not their fault.
It is their fault because that's their job.
You work for profit.
Congress isn't even here today.
No more blood for oil. Profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit.
No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. No more blood for profit. Do we sing songs? Does anyone know? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, dear.
Hey, thank you all very much. I'm leaving. Remember, this is just the beginning, okay? And they're about to be cranky. There's no sense causing yourselves any trouble, but thank you for sharing the day with me and my son.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you did.
Yeah, no one's getting arrested today. We're all going home. We don't have any arrest support, so don't worry. I'm not going to jail tonight to pick people up, so. But I will, actually. Yeah, honey.
I have another one.
We need to encourage our friends that protests don't end at a scheduled time. We really need to let people know that, because when you apply for a protest permit and then you just protest at the permitted places, and then when they say your permit is over, you stop, there's no permission to protest. It's a constitutional right. We don't need permission, and we need people to be more brave, especially in D.C. where the cops don't fuck with us. You guys are nice, and you guys don't fuck with us. We know that, so.
You've been to J20.
I mean, as far as cops go.